What's up, everybody? Here we are with the Energy is Love podcast. It's been in full swing now for a little while, a couple weeks, maybe a week. I don't know. It's going great. We're loving everything that we're doing, and we're loving everybody that we're getting to talk to and meet and spreading this love and this energy out there. So I'd like to thank our sponsors for the show, Crystal Water Float Spa. Go online, crystalwaterfloat.com, or find them on Facebook at their Facebook page. You can just search Crystal Water Float Spa. If you're enjoying the podcast and you're enjoying listening, by all means, donate. We've got a GoFundMe account set up. You can go find that on our Facebook page. We've got it linked there. Like I said, if you're enjoying the podcast and you're enjoying what we're doing, go and support us. Throw us some cash, send us some love and some energy so that we can keep doing and we can keep expanding and seeing where this thing grows. We're also always looking for new sponsors. If you want to become a sponsor of the podcast, we'd love to have you. Reach out and contact us. You can email us at energyislovepodcast@gmail.com or go to our Facebook page and message us there. You can find us on Facebook at Energy is Love Podcast. On today's episode, we get to talk with Kat Meyer. Kat's a conscious channeler. She's somebody that works with clients, and in that process, she connects to the source of energy that we all stem from and channels information for that person and for that moment. She does some really amazing work. I've actually had sessions with Kat before in the past, and she's got some really wonderful insight to help you with your life. And, you know, this interview was great. This really neat things happening in all these interviews that I'm doing, and I'm really enjoying it. And Kat was no different. I got some insight into her as a person, and not just the way that she works with energy, but kind of the way she moves through life. And I love the fact that we get to share that message with people, and hopefully it's helping people. Hopefully it's helping you in your process. Maybe you're going on a journey yourself. Maybe you're waking up. Maybe you're starting to experience things and look at things differently. And now you have a place you can go. You can relate. You can listen. Now you have some place where you can get some insight, and that's the intention behind the podcast. And Kat had great things to say, and it was a really fun interview. Here we go with Kat Meyer on the Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love. The Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Podcast for the universe.
Energy is love.
That's perfect.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us again today on the Energy is Love podcast. My guest is Kat Meyer. She's here sitting before me, and you guys get the opportunity to learn all about her. So how are you doing today, Kat?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. How are you, Craig?
Good. Thank you for coming out, sitting down for
pleasure.
the podcast. So first thing I want to ask you, because I've been thinking about what I'm going to talk to you about and what I'm going to ask, and tell us first off just a little bit about you, just real brief kind of, and then I'll give you my question.
Okay. Well, my name is Kat. I'm from here in Salt Lake. I started doing readings professionally about a year ago, actually, this month. I started out, I have a long history of just my own personal work, and it occurred to me right before my 30th birthday, actually, like, wow, maybe this is something I can do for other people. And so I started doing that for family and friends, and eventually ran into Betty, was led to Betty. That's its own story, and I'm happy to tell you if you're interested. But so I started doing soul works a year ago and have been doing readings professionally ever since.
Okay. Now my question is, because what you call your stuff, what you do when you have a session, when you have a reading, you channel, right?
Correct.
Perfect. That's what I want to talk about.
Ooh, okay.
I want to get into that. And so you can explain, like, first off, just explain a little bit about the process for you when you're sitting down with somebody and what it is that you do.
Well, I incorporate a lot of crystals into my readings. So it's kind of a twofold thing. When somebody sits down, I begin by quieting, neutralizing the energy, whatnot, matching a vibrational level with the crystals, and then I place a grid. So I've got a couple of different reasons for doing that. The first is with connecting with the crystals, I'm able to kind of tune into the energy and pull in the ones that will help specific messages to transmit. So given the energy of the crystals. And the other part that provides a wonderful benefit is the grid that gets laid out often provides an extra level of insight into the person's situation.
Is it typically different for everybody?
I've never had two that were the same.
And is it, when you're doing that, I'm assuming you have, your crystals and your stones and things like that you bring with you. Do you have ones that you kind of will always typically use, or are you just intuitively feeling what is for that person at that moment?
I intuitively pick them. And it's interesting because before an event, I have so many crystals in my home. And my daughter counted them one time. It's a year ago. It was,
Yeah, we need a separate room for all the rocks and crystals.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll stand in front of them and tune into the energy of the day, trying to, get a good feel for the people that will be sitting before me, and the crystals just kind of stand out that want to come. And then they're the ones that I use. So I have those, like my collection that I bring. And then as each person sits before me, I'll intuitively pick from those for that specific person.
And then what's next in the process after you kind of had the crystal set up and the grid and everything like that? Where do you go next?
I close my eyes. I go into a light meditative state, and it allows me to hear directly from source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, and get messages that come through. A lot of times, 90% of the time, they're in the form of analogies, pictures, and that always gives a really good place to go. And then this whole new world opens up from there. And I'm kind of, in the readings, I'm not really here nor there. I feel like I'm kind of in between worlds.
And I space in there.
That's something you can probably relate to.
Yeah.
As somebody who works with that yourself.
It's funny that you mentioned, because a lot of times my stuff, when I work with people and when I connect to people and things like that, my stuff always comes in weird, bizarro analogies and metaphors and pictures, and it really never ever makes sense. Have you found that in the practice of it, not just working with clients, but within your own space, like you've gotten a better sense of how to work with that? Because I think initially when that stuff starts to come, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's always a process. I mean, these things, it's constant evolution as far as, new insights, new understandings on how to work with it. And a lot of times when because the visuals come so strong, and a lot of times they won't make sense. There'll be a certain picture, shapes or something that I'm not able to make any sense of whatsoever. And as we continue with the reading, as we delve into more and as more messages come through, then themes start developing, and it creates this big picture of insight. And it never ceases to fascinate me about how that whole process works, and how something that, random shapes stuck together that don't make any sense provide this whole world of insight and direction. And, it's like the big overview of everything that's going on. And then it breaks down into details as the reading progresses.
That's really cool. Because obviously I know what you're talking about, and I can relate completely to it, because my energy work, when I work with clients and things like that, it's very similar. When you have stuff for yourself, so not just maybe when you're working for yourself or reading for yourself or things like that, but when you feel like you're connected to that space where the information comes from, the source, is it kind of the same thing for you, where it comes in weird shapes and forms and analogies and metaphors? Or do you get clearer stuff for yourself?
I get clearer stuff for myself most of the time. Every once in a while, I'll get a picture, I'll get something, and just look up, what does this mean? I don't understand this at all. And then again, as things develop, as my meditation continues, or as the day progresses, or whatever the case may be, then it starts to make sense. Okay, I can work with this.
Yeah. Tell us the story about Betty. How did you meet Betty? Because Soulworks is the first place that you started doing this, right? Yeah.
And, it's so wonderful that Betty was willing to jump in and give me the opportunity to start doing this publicly. I couldn't be more grateful. So I'll just give you the day of how I met Betty.
Okay.
So I channel, and I've always had a relationship with, angels and spirit guides and this and that.
You feel like you've had that your whole life?
Yes.
And you kind of remember it and everything? It's not something that you've had to come back to and re-remember?
No.
It's
no,
always
I've
been
always
there.
had it.
That's cool.
And that's, provided a lot of very interesting interactions with people in my younger years when I didn't really understand what was going on, why nobody else knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
But the morning that I met Betty, I was downstairs getting ready for the day, brushing my hair and whatnot. And Archangel Gabriel showed up and just started chatting with me, just like you and I are chatting now. Nothing in particular, nothing super deep or amazing or, really insightful. Just, hey, how's it going type stuff. And he said to me, make sure you listen today. And that was it. And then he was gone. And I'm like, okay, well, that was interesting. That's never happened. I've never had an archangel just plop down on my counter before.
Yeah.
So I did that. And I went through my day, kind of kept it in the back of my mind, not dwelling on it. And I went to Dancing Cranes with my daughters. And on the way out, something told me to turn back around. And so we went back through the door, went up to the counter, and I asked if they were looking for any readers at that time. And the woman behind the counter said, no, but go talk to Betty. She's really the connection person as far as all of that is concerned. So I went and talked to her, and I told her my story. And she said that she had just barely had somebody drop out at the fair, and she was considering whether or not she wanted to replace that person. She'd asked Archangel Gabriel to bring her the right person if that was meant to be. Yeah. And then I showed up, and the rest is history. So cool. it was a really beautiful, amazing experience that day. And every day since, it's changed my life.
Yeah. So that story that you just told, the undercurrent of it is the intuition, that knowingness of trusting that information that you're receiving. Right. I think that a lot of people can relate to that because everybody has that inner voice, everybody has that intuition, and it doesn't really matter what you call it, but it's really learning how to listen to it and trust it and follow it. Has that been a process for you throughout your life? Have you struggled with that, or was that just always something that you just were really kind of good at?
I've always had that really strong intuition, as we all do. And I've always known that I was supposed to listen to it. And for the most part there have been a handful of times throughout my life that my mind, my physical mind thought it could outsmart it. And I paid the price heavily in every single one of those circumstances. None of them were a minor anything, but again, all experiences that I'm very grateful for because they brought me to where I am today. So absolutely no regret ever.
Yeah. And I know, because we've talked before, obviously, we're friends and things like that, and we see each other when we go to those fairs and at Soulworks and the different places. And you just recently made the big decision and you left your job, your career, your profession, and this is what you're doing now, embracing this gift that you have and this desire that you have to help people, right?
Yes.
How's that going?
It's been a ride. It's been a ride. I have stepped back into nursing because I enjoy it. It does fulfill a part of me. I know it's not my calling, but I do find it very fulfilling. So I'm doing some work with that part-time. How
long have you been a nurse?
I've been a nurse for about 3 years.
And then what did you do before that?
Before that, what did I do before that?
I think it's always interesting to see, because this isn't, I don't think, I wish that they taught this kind of stuff in school and people would go into this career or this profession or this passion from the get-go, but so many people obviously don't. And we all have these varied pasts of I used to do this and I used to do that. And for whatever reason, now I'm here and I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's really, really, you can kind of see some parallels between nursing and energy work because so much of that, obviously you were incorporating, I'm sure, copious amounts of energy work in nursing, holding space and working with people and just being that type of conduit for that healing that takes place. But what did you do before? What was your first job?
My first job was at Whole Foods. I've always gravitated toward, natural medicine, health foods, just taking care of the physical form as well as the spiritual form. Always making my own blends and concoctions and, everything along those lines, just intuitively. And then I got certified to teach yoga in 2004. And I've been teaching yoga all over since then. All age groups. I taught preschool yoga for 6 years.
Really?
That was a blast.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Children are naturally inclined to those things, and they don't have that headspace, that fuzziness that, growing up in certain areas of society can bring.
Yeah.
So, and they got the natural flexibility and just
and they're
that.
not concerned how they're looking in a certain pose or their butt sticking out too far.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that enthusiasm for life. And that's something that I just feel and connect with and love and am so passionate about in and of itself is just that true, unabashed love and fun and zest for life, because life is amazing. It's a blast, and to be around little beings that still embrace that and understand that and see that is the greatest feeling. I love it.
That's cool. Are you still teaching yoga?
I do private sessions now, occasionally workshops, and I do substitute preschool yoga, but I would like to get back into a yoga in the park program. I was running one of those for a couple of summers shortly after I got certified, and just keeping my foot in it. I don't see myself doing it full time, but I definitely enjoy it. It again fulfills this part of me. So,
because we've talked before, and I think we both have this same kind of feeling of like, we love doing fairs, we love doing energy work, we love being out there and helping people, but then at the same time, that's not necessarily where you see yourself. So expand on that. Like, where do you see yourself going with let's just fast forward. Tell me where you're going to be in a year, if you can imagine that. Even though you have to allow for the whole thing where like, I don't even know, I'm just going to let it go and flow and see what happens.
Right.
But if you could picture it, if you could paint it, what would it look like?
Very music-based. Very, very music-based. I actually have a music project I'm currently working on, just solo. And so doing more with that.
Tell us about it. What's the project you're working on?
Well, when I do energy work, so at the fairs, I do channeling and kind of leave it in that little compartment. When I do private sessions, as far as healing work and energy work and all of that goes, I incorporate the use of vocal sound healing. So we're all familiar with the Tibetan singing bowls, with bells, with chimes, with all of those types of things. And this is in a lot of ways that same concept, but it's with the voice as the emitter of sound. And the whole concept behind that is, I've always been a singer. I've always felt very strongly about the power of sound and what it's capable of. And we're just on the cusp of really discovering, like, we're on the tip of the iceberg, finding out how deeply sound can heal and transform, because we are vibrational beings. Everything around us is vibration. Everything is perception of vibration. That is what we consider reality. It's all perception of vibration. And what is sound but vibration? So by using sound, we can literally transform our reality. We can transform health. We can transform everything when there's intention and energy and love and all of these wonderful things that get to the core of who we are as spiritual beings. When we put that through and send it out in waves of beautiful vibration, it's the effects are astounding. And I am so excited to really delve into this farther and see what we can do.
What you can do. Like, are you excited? Because how often do you use that kind of aspect of healing in your work when you have a client that comes for like a private session outside of that fair environment?
98% of the time.
The majority of the time.
Mm-hmm. So, and what my original point, I went off on that beautiful tangent. So, as vibrational beings, we each have a core tone that resonates with us personally, because I like to think of our world, all of the energy around us as a symphony, basically. And we each have our part, we each have our instrument, we each have our note that we play at any given time that is specific to us as individuals. And by incorporating, and this is what I love about being able to use the voice, is that there's a much broader range. So when I sit down in a private session to use sound healing, I will play around with different tones, with different notes, and find the note, the tone that is specific to the individual that I'm working with.
What frequency they're kind of at and stuff.
And it's not a vibration thing, like as far as high frequency, low frequency. It doesn't. That's irrelevant. It's the physical sound that the body is responding to in that moment, and that can really expedite healing when you hit on that. And I've seen some amazing results.
That's really cool. I mean, I've never seen anybody. I think that would probably be a hard thing to do in a fair environment.
Yes.
It's not real conducive to large groups of people and distractions and noise and things like that. But I think that's super cool. That's a really neat direction, I think. And that's exciting.
Thank you.
Were you born and raised in Utah?
I was.
Yeah.
I was. I'm both my parents are first generation American. So most of my family is over in Europe, scattered around Germany and Italy. And I am the only one that was born in Utah.
Really?
So, yeah, raised in Catholic school, which was an interesting experience as well. Yeah, I never, it's funny because Utah has this whole stigma about it, Zion and this and that, and I didn't even know what a Mormon was until I was in 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
So I've always kind of lived in my own little bubble, I guess. I used to call it Catland when I was a kid, just joking around. But there's kind of some truth to that, because I always just assumed that everybody was on the same wavelength as me and never really thought much of it. And it always came as a shock to me time and time again when I would start talking about something that I just felt or whatever, and I'd just get these funny looks like, what?
Did you struggle growing up Catholic? Like, how did you come to terms with the whole religion aspect and God? And because that's not your belief system now necessarily, right?
No, and it really never was. Theology, that's the word I was looking for.
That's
I find theology
that's the good word.
very fascinating. And so I embraced all of the experiences that I had. Growing up in Catholic school, we did study world religion, and I loved that, and kind of embraced the whole concept of Hinduism, which was exacerbated when I got certified to teach yoga. I went and lived on a Hindu ashram for a month, very ingrained in that culture. And
a Hindu what?
Ashram.
I have no idea what that is.
It's like a spiritual land. And
okay.
So we would wake up, we did 2 hours of meditation every morning, 2 hours of yoga, go through our yoga classes as far as like the anatomy and the instruction, all of that. We did kirtan and a little bit of Sanskrit study, and then 2 more hours of meditation at night, followed by 2 more hours of yoga. It was a phenomenal experience.
It was a month that you were there?
Mm-hmm.
And where was it?
It was in Grass Valley, California.
Nice.
In the Shivananda Yoga Ashram.
That's super cool.
It was amazing. I wouldn't trade it for the world. So anyway, back to theology. So growing up in Catholic school, I always kind of took it with a grain of salt, in the sense of I was able to appreciate the concepts and everything, because there's a part of me that understood the origin of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I don't, necessarily believe the practices, or didn't necessarily believe the practices and the ritual of it, there was a part of me that was able to understand how it all came about and appreciate that at face value. But, when I would go home, I would still meditate. I would burn my incense. I would, kind of go back into my own inner world that I knew was my own truth as a result. So it was kind of a twofold, can't say double wasn't a double life, although it kind of felt like it at times.
Yeah.
But it
sounds
was,
like you took from it what you needed and, benefited from it and things, but at the same time, it wasn't, your belief system.
yeah, it never resonated with me
Yeah.
as a belief, as all of that. And I opted out of, a lot of the traditional Catholic things at certain ages, like the communion and you know what I mean?
Yeah. All that different Catholic stuff.
The ritual of it.
Did your mom or your parents or anything, did they struggle with, did they always embrace what you were doing and were supportive or?
Yeah. that was an interesting dynamic too. My mom was a little more open with it. My sister was a little bit more open with it. It kind of freaked her out though. So I just stopped talking about things with her. And my dad was kind of this, I won't ask, you don't tell, and we're all good.
Yeah.
So, I learned very early on, because I remember being very, 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 very small. And I would get so excited about things that I would see, about entities that I would talk to, and, these colors and this and that. And it was not really received. So I just kind of stopped talking about it. But instead of shutting it off, I just internalized it all and kept it to myself. So because I had that fulfillment, and I knew that was home.
Yeah.
For me.
That's cool you were able to do that, because I think a lot of times when people start to experience the negative aspect of it, when they share it with people, where they're looked at or viewed strangely, or you're not just crazy, but you stop talking about this, or I think that happens a lot. And then like you said, people will just shut it off. People will kind of disconnect from it and distance themselves from it, because they do think, or they start to view themselves that way and think that way, and they want to be normal and they want to be accepted and loved and all those kind of things. And so that's cool that you were able to kind of just internalize it and still keep it present. And that's super cool.
I'm very grateful for that. And I do believe that music played a big part in that.
Yeah.
Because I came out of the womb singing. So pretty literally. So having that outlet to pour myself into when people wouldn't understand my words, to be able to exude that same energy through song, I think that was really, really impactful, and possibly even a saving grace. I can't say for sure otherwise, because I didn't have another experience, but I definitely felt a negative impact when I was not singing, going through periods of my life where I would take a break.
Yeah.
And it would start to impact me very negatively. And as soon as I would start singing again, then everything just righted itself.
Yeah.
It fell right into place.
I want to talk about, there's a lot of dogma in spirituality and in the realm of like energy work and just all this stuff. And people, you'll read about things, you'll hear about things, people will talk about things, and it almost becomes like the accepted norm. It becomes like a belief system, a communal belief system that people kind of take part of. And there's parts of that resonate with me. There's parts of that I kind of connect with. And then there's other parts of it that I think are just bullshit. Do you know what I mean? For example, tell me what you think when it comes to, and no judgment whatsoever if for some reason you're agreeing with the bullshit that I think is bullshit. I don't think that at all. And that's the other thing too, is I'm not judging anybody in any way, shape, or form. I think it's very specific to the individual. But what I'm talking about is I think when people don't seek out what is truth for them, when they don't take an idea, a concept, a belief system, and then really make sure that that's what it is for them, rather than just assuming that it's the accepted norm. And so let's talk about past lives, because that's the thing that's popping into my head. That's the thing that I kind of want to talk about. Tell me your viewpoint on past lives.
I don't believe that any of us has lived any specific past lives. I believe it as more of a concept, because life is continuous. Life is, it's constant. It's, it changes form, but it never really ends or begins. And so talking about past lives, I believe very strongly, actually, when people do refer to past life experiences. You hear about people who have very specific memories. I think it's tuning into the collective, because we are all of the same energy.
Yeah.
We're all the same source. Again, life is life and continues through forms, through time, through, all of these perceptions, but it doesn't really change at its core. And so I believe that any sort of past life karma that people talk about, past life experiences, they're tuning into one piece of the collective, just as if I'm, channeling during a reading, I can tune into information regarding a person's situation. I believe that when somebody is tuning into a past life experience, it's just tuning into something that happened, whether it be specific or vague. It could be tuning into the energy of it. And I think that's what, when we refer to past life karma, because all of these habits, all of these energies have remained ingrained in us to an extent.
Yeah.
And so when we're resolving past life karma, it's not necessarily our own, it's on behalf of the collective, and we all have our own part to play in that.
See, I like that, because that's kind of the thing I'm talking about, where people will, you always hear people comment, well, I must have had this experience in a past life, and now that's why I'm behaving the way that I am in my current life. And they pawn it off on this past life experience, almost like an excuse or a way out of really dealing with what they're really dealing with right now. Mm-hmm. And I struggled with that, because I would have like a past life experience, or what would typically be labeled a past life experience, where I would have it through meditation or through some other sort of like energy work, somebody else was facilitating or something like that. And you feel very connected to it. But then the whole struggle for me was like, everything's now, like everything's in the present. Mm-hmm. That's a really big thing for me. It's like, it's just now. The time doesn't really exist other than the present moment. So how can it be a past life then?
Yeah. And
so it's kind of similar. I like the way that you describe it, that whole conscious thing, and that you're just connecting into that space. And even I like the way you described as well that, you're healing that aspect of that collective consciousness energy that's out there. And it's not necessarily just for you, but it's for the whole, it's for the universe. It's for that source that everybody stems from. Mm-hmm. Do you find that because I'm assuming that when you channel sometimes, or when you work with clients, sometimes you will get stuff that will come up that seems very past lifey. So how do you deal with that? Like, do you know what I mean? Do you go through the effort of trying to explain it to the client, or do you just use the moniker of a past life so that they understand it?
Neither.
Good. Well, tell me what you do then.
I try to bring awareness to the root of that. And so instead of referring to past lives in any sense, because honestly, I'm not comfortable with that, because I can't say I necessarily believe, we had past lives. So I can't speak out of my own authenticity. That it doesn't work for me, or outside of it, excuse me. So I touch on, we have this energy. I reiterate the concept of the connectedness between us all. And as far as, working through it, help provide tools that would be of specific benefit to the person in front of me, to help work through that and help them understand the beauty and the benefit of working through it, because we all have a part. And what's so beautiful to me about the fact that we are all in this together is that it's giving us responsibility for not only ourselves, but for all those we care about, for all those that we love, that we connect with, that we see, even if we're not on that same vibrational level, to know that you can bring everybody up through working through these things. That's amazing. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And
there is something so empowering and so validating, because we do live in a time where, and in a form, this physical form, where we're starting to get out of this, but it is in our humanness to need that validation sometimes. So to know that you are validated by collective source energy, just this limitless love that we are, and carry that through and bring everybody up. It's, you know, and having that piece of responsibility and that ownership of where we're going all together.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, I can't think of anything greater myself.
It is a pretty great thing. This other concept and idea I want to talk to you about. I think that this is me personally. This is my kind of idea or belief or thought process, I suppose, is a better way to describe it. I think that there's old energy on the planet, and then I think there's a wave of new energy on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that people are stuck in the practices and the beliefs and the way of working with energy, and it's the old energy that is stuck there. And I'd like to elaborate even further. So I think about a lot of traditional things that stem from native cultures, whether they're Native American, whether they're shamanic, anything that, you know, has been going on for thousands of years and we're still practicing it today. I think that's old energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's bad in any way, shape, or form. I think it's the foundation, but I think that there's a new kind of energy that exists, a new vibration, a new frequency that is now here and present, and the planet is functioning on and vibrating at, not just the planet, but the universe. And so I think we have to find a happy marriage between using the foundational work of the old energy, but yet realizing you have to expand upon it and kind of get outside of the realm of what we've always done with it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I feel like we are going that direction, and we have been. It's a very slow process, but look at where we were, 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Look at us. We're working with the public intuitively, doing this energy work, doing all of these things that would have been completely out there and frowned upon. And, even before that, life-threatening.
Yeah. And
now there's this openness around it. And, at the very worst, if somebody doesn't agree with it, it's not, oh, let's go burn you at the stake. It's, oh, you're that type of person,
Yeah.
So that's huge. That's huge for where we've come. And, there still is a place for these old practices, because if that's what people are able to feel and relate with, to keep in touch with their spirituality, then they absolutely still have a place. And in the meantime, we do have all this new energy that's entering, and we do have, all of these huge realizations and advancements and all of these things in this new age that we're stepping into. And so we're in that time of transition right now, where that page is being turned, where you haven't quite finished reading what's on the that's on the first page, but it's coming, so you've already started to turn it.
Uh-huh.
We're kind of at that at that point right now. So I feel that the really base importance is that people are finding a way to remain connected spiritually, however that looks to them. And I find that part irrelevant, but the connection is the important thing.
Yeah.
And this gradual transition that is not so gradual as we, go on in time. It seems like it's just speeding up like crazy.
Yeah.
We're going through this mass awakening right now. It's awesome. But that will find its place, and that will be the new old energy before we know it.
Probably, yeah. I think you're right.
But again, just to reiterate, the real importance through all of that is that people are finding a way to remain spiritually connected.
So what do you do to remain spiritually connected? What is it that you do, like your own kind of practices and things like that?
I meditate and do yoga. So those are the big things. I wake up very early every morning and start my day with meditation and yoga. Ideally end it the same way. That's kind of hit and miss though.
Yeah.
But just, having that that check-in, setting the intentions for the day. And then throughout the day, I'll take a few minutes here and there and just kind of check in with myself, see where I'm at, see where I need to tweak my energy. You know, if I'm starting to lower vibrationally in this little area because of something that happened, just kind of giving myself those little reminders like, oh, this doesn't really matter in the long run. Like, it's all good. We're fine. Okay. And then carrying on, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'm one of those people that goes through every day, all day, just randomly singing. And I feel like that's what helps me stay centered, you know, and everybody has their own thing. And if you don't, I very much encourage you to find one, because creative outlet, whatever it is, any form, it could be, you know, building a little matchstick house. It doesn't even matter. Anything that you can do just off the cuff, doodling on a napkin, who cares, to bring yourself back into that place of alignment is so far beyond words beneficial.
Yeah. It's necessary, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you can have that creative outlet, like you said, in any way, shape, or form, I think that that's a real strong connection to the universe and to that source energy. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good way to stay balanced.
So we are creators.
So if you could pick one place on the planet to live, to move to set up shop, where would it be?
Oh, gosh.
Have you ever thought about that?
You know, I have. And my answer has changed constantly. But really, home is where you make it, right?
Yeah.
And so I love Salt Lake, to be honest. I absolutely love it here. I'm a total desert dweller. I would love to move down to, you know, I love Moab and all of that. But we're at a great place. It's only 3 hours away. I have always wanted to see India. That's always been something that I felt very strongly. I feel so connected with that country.
To go to India?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
I couldn't tell you.
Like, what is it that draws you there?
I felt very connected with the whole spirituality surrounding India and the Hindu practices. And I think that was exacerbated by my experiences on the ashram, but I've always felt very connected prior as well. That Shakti energy and the Sanskrit, the way that so much can be said in so few syllables, it fascinated me with the language and the whole culture there, and the joy and the tradition, and you know, it's a very powerful place. So to be there in person and really absorb all of that energy and feel it, I think would be phenomenal.
Would you want to move there and live there? Or just vacation and visit maybe for an extended period of time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I've kind of, it's funny because we grow up having these ideas of where we see ourselves and, you know, where we want to go and what we want to do. And I've kind of reached that point in my life where I've just thrown my hands in the air. I'm like, all right, let's just see what happens. It's all good. So where I end up, I'm just as happy regardless. I don't have my heart set on anywhere or anything, just remaining open and, you know, doing what you love and seeing where it takes you. And,
do you have a favorite place that you like to go? Like someplace, Moab?
Yeah. Just the desert.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what it is with that desert energy. That fills me up.
Yeah.
That's good.
You have 2 daughters, right?
Mm-hmm.
How old are they?
They are 10 and 8.
10 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of things do you see in them when it comes to all of this stuff?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I've actually had a very strong connection with them since before they were born.
Uh-huh.
I'll tell you the story about my oldest. So when, I must have been 20. I think I was 19. I was young. And I found out that my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. And we went out to California to visit with family and, you know, be supportive and what you do with family. Mm-hmm. And I was staying with my cousins one night, and we were chatting about whatever, just getting our minds off of everything. And I just blurted out, I'm going to have a little girl right before my Noni dies. And I wasn't in any relationship then. I, hadn't even met my daughter's dad. And long story short, I had her 10 days before she died. She came to me in dreams. She named herself. She told me what her name was. She told me what day she was going to be born. And we always had a very, very strong connection. And then she came here into this physical world and has always been master manifester, very intuitive as well. And then similar story, minus the circle of life aspect with my youngest. She communicated with me that she was ready to come down. And so again, I knew when she was going to be born. She told me her name and is also very intuitive, in different ways though. Like they're kind of the representation of that older soul energy and that new springing into life, bringing all this where we're going energy onto the planet. So I've got one that's this, ancient healer, wise, and then this other one who's just highly intuitive, highly sensitive, but go-getter, like, let's go make everything amazing. So it's really neat watching them grow up and see where their interests are and their natural abilities. And I really try to do everything that I can to foster that in them. And, we talked about what a soft spot I have for kids. I just, children. And I do have one of the things that I would like to do in the future, and I've been developing this, just the technical, the physical aspects of how to lay it all out and make it work and bring people. And, people have been coming to me and it's starting to find its place organically. But I do want to create a program, almost like an after school type program for children where they can come and have that aspect of themselves nurtured. Because as we talked about before, I feel very fortunate that I never lost that. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart to think of all these beautiful, amazing souls coming here to Earth and not feeling understood and shutting this essential part of themselves down. So to have somewhere that they can go and to have that nurtured and, their talents refined, a place where they can practice on their intuition and practice, healing and working with energy and all of that, and have a creative outlet and, somewhere where they can just feel safe and understood, I feel would be invaluable to our children. Cool. So that's something that I'm working on and, am excited to see come to fruition.
Yeah, that would be neat. Do you find that your daughters, I'm sure they're experiencing a ton of different things, but for the most part, do they manage it and kind of do okay? Or do you kind of have to help them through the process? And when I say experiencing a lot of things, I mean like you talked about when you were a kid, seeing things and hearing things, and do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How do they manage that?
We always talk about everything very openly. Yeah. And it's been such a benefit to them since I quit full-time nursing and have stepped more into this world as far as career, as far as just enveloping our lives go, because they really feel like it's a bigger part of everything now, and are understanding that it is something to embrace and to follow and to listen to and to talk about and not be ashamed of and not hide or close off. So, they've had experiences, and they always come to me and we talk about it and, work through it. And sometimes they'll meditate with me and, whatever the situation may be, it's always a focus on what is your intuition saying about this, and helping them just work that muscle.
Yeah. Yeah. Helping them through that process. What were you what did you think was going to happen? Like, how did you kind of envision? What did you think you were going to talk about here?
I don't know.
You're just down for whatever.
Yeah, again, not just rolling with it.
Yeah.
Type thing. There was a lot coming into my mind this morning as well, and it's all just since vanished.
It's just all gone.
Yeah.
How do you manage the stigma attached to this stuff? Do you just not let it bother you? Do you just not worry about it?
It doesn't faze me. Not at all.
Do you have anybody in your life that, as far as like relationships goes, and I'm not talking about, but like people that you interact with, that the relationship is really strained because you've chosen to kind of do this and embrace this and be this?
No.
Really?
Yeah. Surprisingly, I wasn't sure. And it was actually when I started Soulworks, and a couple of the other practitioners there kind of joked about coming out of the psychic closet, coming out of the spiritual closet, and I opened up about it, and for the first time in my life, really just like no holds barred, opened up about everything and would just talk about it like it was normal, and it was received the same way.
Yeah.
Like just typical conversation, like my talking about, talking to my late great grandfather who since passed away, however many years ago, is just as normal as talking about the weather. And I feel that so much of this is the energy that we put across. If we kind of have that hesitance, if we have that, apprehension about how it's going to be received, it will be received with apprehension. But if we don't have that, if we talk about, aligning the chakras the same as you talk about, oh, that cloud over there, then it's going to be received the same. And that was something I didn't know until I was doing it, until I was in there. And it's actually been a really, really wonderful thing, because in talking about this with anybody, I mean, I don't go around and preach and this and that, but, I don't hide, I don't pretend. So if something triggers, something gets me to talk about this topic that just happens to be in the metaphysical realm, I don't stop myself because, I'm not sure what that person is going to think, how it's going to be received. And even without having to say too much, just that change in my own perception, that shift in my own energy, as far as being more open with it. I've had a lot of people that would be people I would not in a million years think to have any desire to have a conversation about any of it, approaching me and asking me questions and inquiring and finding themselves interested in what I have to say in the metaphysical and the spiritual topics. And so it's been really wonderful to see this new openness that's occurring in people. And I don't know if, I do believe that it is a mass, part of the mass awakening. But it just seemed like such a sudden shift,
It seemed like it just happened, and probably it kind of feels like it happened recently, like within the last year or two, where you just see it so much more.
Yeah.
What's some of the craziest things that you've experienced through, like if you can share an example of something, whether it be through meditation or, visions or whatever, it doesn't matter what we call it, but what's the craziest thing that you kind of can remember that you've experienced in that state and in that place?
Oh, gosh, there have been a lot. The first one that sticks out in my mind was when I was 10, actually. And I think this one stands out because it was the first time in my life that I realized there was so much more, consciously realized. Because before that, I always had these intuitive things, these, feelings, the colors and this and that. But when I was 10, there was a boy who had passed on that directly approached me for help. And that was, I want to say life-changing, but I can't I can't really say that because it wasn't surprising, but it was so profound.
Yeah.
And that's when it really hit me that oh, this is like, I can help people, help energy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, physical or non-physical, it doesn't matter. Like I'm a part of this. And so that was a really amazing experience. And the first time I directly connected with infinite consciousness, that was amazing. It was like talking to the stars.
Yeah. It's hard to put into words, huh?
Yeah.
Like it's hard because so much of it, I think, yes, there's visual aspects to it where you kind of see things, but so much of it is the feeling associated with it, and then trying to verbalize and put into words. Feeling, I think a lot of time is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
I know I struggle with that a lot, trying to really fully express the depth of emotion and feeling. And especially when it comes from source and when it comes from that space out there that, you know, holds so much, then it's like, how in the hell do you explain that?
Yeah.
It's challenging.
Yeah. And I think that's when it really hit me, because it was around that same age. And that was when it really hit me, like, you can't even try to to explain, you know. And it's interesting just how you're talking about, you know, forming words around everything that this is. I really feel like we are heading in that direction where words are becoming less and less necessary. And, you know, I remember being a kid and I was perceived as painfully shy.
Yeah.
And I never felt that about myself. It was this weird label that I didn't understand, just as I didn't understand how people couldn't just know through my energy. It was like this expectation that I came into this world with, that everybody communicated in energy and words are just superfluous.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I realized that people aren't really getting that.
It's not working for me.
I gotta figure out how this like language thing works, because we gotta be on the same page somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but it's really cool, because I feel as this awareness is opening and as this, you know, awakening is happening, people are starting to become more in tune to each other's energy, and, you know, and words are becoming more and more unnecessary, because I do believe that we are all inherently telepathic to a degree. And, you know, to see that embraced, and, you know, it's okay. So I've read about, right now we're in like at the ending days of this whole mind-centered reality. And now we're shifting more into what we would consider the solar plexus.
Uh-huh.
And that's where it's like our spiritual brain, basically. And that's starting to find its place as our center of awareness, as opposed to the mind. Because whereas the mind is very physical, very, oh, I can see this with my physical eyes, therefore it is real. I can feel this with my physical hand, therefore it is real. The solar plexus, you know, that centered thinking is a full understanding that everything is vibration, everything is perception, everything is energy, and operating from a reality, for lack of a better word, in that understanding, in that place of understanding. And that's going to change the world
A lot.
beyond words. Yeah. A lot.
Yeah. Have you ever had when I say your faith, I mean, have you ever had your belief in all of this stuff? Have you ever had it challenged because of an experience or something that you kind of had to survive through?
I've had it strengthened through things that I've had to survive through.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say it's been challenged, but I have been through things that took me away a little bit. I lost the close connection. But as far as, you know, ever questioning, I never did. It's always just been more in touch, more out of touch. Okay, this time in my life, I kind of didn't meditate for a year and forgot a couple of things. But then I remembered, and then some. And then, you know, it happens again. And then I remembered, and then some. And so it's just gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And where I am now, I'm able to look back on some of the big challenges that I've had in my life and be so grateful and in a place where I can't do anything except bless them. And yeah.
And grow from them.
And grow from them.
Yeah.
And just, I couldn't be more blessed because of those experiences.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. I think a lot of people obviously turn to the opposite side where they're going to distance themselves from it and try to pick apart and understand why bad things happen and all that kind of stuff. And that's chaos, I think, in my mind.
It is. But we are here for contrast. You know, it is a ride, you know, and so we can't really do much else aside from go through life going, wee, because that's what it is. It's all expansion. Everything is expansion, and it's not just our own. It's for the collective. Everything that we go through is benefiting collective consciousness, benefiting all of us, like we talked about earlier. And we need that contrast, because without the contrast, we don't know what it is that we're here to seek, to find, to grow from. And it's, I don't know if you listen to, Abraham Hicks at all. Esther talks a lot about contrast, and I agree 100%. She says, you don't know what you do want until you know what you don't want.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is those down times, those really difficult times that just make us shoot out like a rocket into an amazing place that we didn't know we were capable of. Mm-hmm. But it took getting to that point to find that determination, to find that will, to find that strength inside of ourselves to just push beyond what we think we can even do.
Yeah. So this is going to be a real challenge for you, Kay. I want you to envision the person that's on a spiritual journey, somebody that has kind of woke up and they're in the process of, and they're learning and they're studying and they're kind of absorbing all this information, and they're trying to really get a firm grasp on what it means for them. But they're struggling with the balance, and they're struggling with trying to put pieces together, and do you know what I mean? Their humanness and the ego, and they're just struggling with the whole process, but they have a desire to embrace it completely and fully. So you have to give that person one piece of advice in the form of one word.
One word?
Like, what would be the one thing that you would say to them that they would take, or that you would hope that they would kind of glean from and help them along in that journey and in that process? I'll give you a second to think.
The first word that comes to mind is listen.
Listen.
Because we have all of the answers inside of ourselves already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the roots are there. Everything is there. We don't have to do anything except listen.
Listen. It's a good word. That's a good piece of advice.
Thank you. You know, so often we have a tendency to go and look for answers outside of ourselves in books and, blog posts and, websites, whatever your preference is as far as outside media or whatnot. But what I've come to discover through my own journey and through my own process is that it really does nothing except make me lose sight of my own journey and my own path.
Yeah. And
that's not to say that there's no benefit in that, but I don't feel like it's ever a good idea to, jump in and absorb. I think, a page or two here and there, reminders, there's some really good information out there. There really is. So I'm not discounting that by any means. But to really embrace the concept that we do have all of the answers inside of ourselves, and that while we're all on the same journey, we're all on our individual journeys as well. So the same basis is there. It's like that. Oh gosh, what are they? Are they aspen trees? No, there's
Quakies?
A system of trees, and they're all individual trees, but all the roots are connected.
Yeah.
Yes. What is it?
Those are Quakies.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But yes, so that's how we are, and each tree needs to be watered and cared for if we're in charge of it, taking care of it as you would, and that's going to be individual, but the roots are the same. But each tree is not going to grow the same way. Each tree is not going to take the same path, have the same number of branches, they're all individual, even though their roots are the same.
Yeah.
And that is exactly how we are. So to have like a one-size-fits-all approach to spirituality is just bullshit. It's not.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It's not feasible. It's not. So by taking some of the foundation, and that's where some of these books and, speakers and this and that are amazing. They're tools. They're not like the crux. They are the tool.
Uh-huh.
The watering can, not the water. The water is already there in you. So it's just accessing it.
So tell me what your Facebook page is, because that's where people can find you and a lot of information about you, right?
So I have my fan page is Vani Devi, Kat Meyer, and it's spelled Vani, next word, Devi.
And what's that in reference to?
That was a spiritual name given to me by Swami Sita on the ashram.
Nice.
And it is interpreted as Goddess of the Voice.
Very good.
So that's very beautiful.
That's your Facebook page.
That's my Facebook page. And then I've got my own page, who I actually have the majority of my friends, clients, everybody.
Yeah.
And that's just my name, Kat Meyer.
And that's probably the best way to find you and contact you if people are interested in learning more and everything.
Yeah, I don't have much on my fan page, but if you friend me on my personal page, then it's got all my work stuff, all my spiritual stuff, everything right there.
Well, sweet.
So
what do you have coming up?
next weekend is the Crystal Festival at Rock Pick Legend, so I'll be there on Friday.
That's like June 10th and 11th, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. Oh, 9th and 10th? Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
second weekend in June.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Kat.
Oh, thank you, Craig.
It's been
was
great
a blast.
to talk to you and learn more about you and everything, and I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Energy is Love podcast. Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye. It was like talking to the stars. Archangel Gabriel showed up. We're on the tip of the iceberg. It came out of the womb singing.